There are places in this world that feel untouched by time. Vast, silent expanses where the modern world's hum fades into the whisper of wind through ancient trees. Deep in the frozen forests of North America, across the boreal shield and the subarctic taiga, the land itself holds a memory of profound cold, of biting scarcity, and of a fear that predates any written history. Here, beneath the indifferent gaze of the northern lights, stories were not just entertainment, they were survival guides. They were maps of the human soul, charting the perilous territories of desperation and despair. And among the many tales of spirits and monsters, one stands apart, a story whispered with a unique and chilling reverence. It speaks of a creature so cursed that even speaking its name was once believed to be a dangerous act, an invitation. The word itself was thought to carry a vibration, a resonance that could travel on the winter wind and find you in the dark. To say it aloud was to risk drawing its attention, to pull the malevolence from the abstract realm of myth and into the terrifyingly concrete reality of your own isolated camp. This caution was born from a profound respect for the power of the unseen. For the Algonquian-speaking peoples, the Cree, the Ojibwe, the Innu, and others who have called these lands home for millennia, this was not a simple ghost story. It was a sacred and terrible truth, a warning against a specific kind of spiritual decay. The name, Wendigo, was a key that could unlock a very dark door. So they used other words, euphemisms spoken in hushed tones around the fire. The spirit of the lonely places, the icy heart, or simply that which is gaunt. They spoke of it as a manifestation of winter itself, its cruelty, its isolation, its ability to strip away everything that makes us human. It is a spirit of endless hunger. But this is not the hunger of an empty stomach, which can be satisfied with a meal. This is a metaphysical void, a gnawing emptiness that consumes from the inside out. It is a craving that cannot be filled, for what it truly desires is the very essence of life, the warmth of community, the light of the human soul. The more it consumes, the larger and more emaciated it becomes, its hunger growing exponentially with every desperate act. It is a perfect metaphor for insatiable greed, an allegory for the corrosive nature of excess. And where does such a terrifying entity come from? It is not born of primordial evil or demonic pacts, in the way other cultures might imagine. Its origins are far more intimate, and therefore far more terrifying. This is a monster born from desperation. It is born in the darkest heart of winter, during a famine so severe that the social fabric begins to tear. It is born when a hunter, lost and starving, is faced with an unthinkable choice to survive. It is born when a community, isolated by relentless blizzards, turns against its own values, succumbing to the ultimate taboo, cannibalism. The law teaches that this act, this consumption of human flesh, does not save the person. Instead, it damns them. It invites the spirit of the Wendigo to enter them, or transforms them into the creature itself. Their heart is said to turn to ice. Their humanity is hollowed out, replaced by that singular, all-consuming hunger. They become a walking ghost, forever hunting, forever starving, a threat to the very people they once loved. This is the Wendigo's true horror. It is not an external beast that stalks the woods, but a monster that sleeps within us all. It is the potential for monstrosity that exists in the most extreme moments of human suffering. It is a cautionary tale about what happens when we lose our connection to each other, when we allow selfishness to conquer community, when survival comes at the cost of our own soul. Over centuries, this story has echoed from the tribal councils of the past to the digital campfires of the present. It has been studied by ethnographers, sensationalized by settlers, and reinterpreted by modern horror. But to truly understand the Wendigo, we must strip away the layers of pop culture and look back into the deep, cold darkness from which it emerged. We must journey into the heart of the winter wilderness, into the history of famine and survival, and into the complex psychology of a creature that is both spirit and sickness, both myth and metaphor. We must ask, what does this ancient story still have to teach us about hunger, about humanity, and about the monsters we might become when we are pushed to the absolute edge? This is the legend of the Wendigo. The Wendigo originates from the folklore of the Algonquian tribes, whose lands stretched across what is now Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and parts of Canada. To them, the Wendigo wasn't just a monster, it was a warning, a symbol of what happens when survival turns into savagery. In the vast, silent expanse of the North American wilderness, where winter's grip is absolute and unforgiving, survival is a delicate balance. For the Algonquian-speaking peoples, this balance was not merely physical, but deeply spiritual. Every action, every choice, was woven into a cosmic tapestry of respect, reciprocity, and order. But within this intricate worldview, there exists a shadow, a concept so profoundly disturbing, it represents the ultimate violation of that order. It is a story whispered on the howling wind, a cautionary tale of a spirit born from the deepest human desperation. According to this ancient legend, a human becomes a Wendigo. The transformation is not arbitrary, nor is it a simple curse inflicted by an outside force. It is a consequence, a spiritual decay that begins with a single horrifying act, the ultimate taboo, cannibalism. The consumption of human flesh is more than a physical act of survival. It is a transgression against the very essence of what it means to be human. It shatters the sacred bonds of community, kinship, and empathy. In the Algonquian belief system, this act is a profound spiritual pollution, an open invitation for a malevolent, insatiable entity to possess the soul. The word itself, Wendigo, or Windigu in the Anishinaabe language, is often translated as the evil spirit that devours mankind. The name is not just a label, it is a diagnosis of a soul consumed by a monstrous hunger. This terrible choice was never made lightly. It was born from the most extreme circumstances imaginable. Imagine the starving times, the long, brutal famine winters when the land offered no sustenance. The game has vanished, the fish are locked beneath impenetrable ice, and the stored provisions have dwindled to nothing. The world shrinks to the confines of a single freezing lodge, surrounded by an endless, silent sea of white. The cold is a physical presence, seeping through the walls, stealing the warmth from your very bones. The silence is broken only by the gnawing ache of hunger and the relentless howl of the wind, a sound that seems to mock the emptiness in your belly. In these desperate moments, when the line between life and death thins to a razor's edge, the mind can fracture. The community, once a source of strength and warmth, becomes a collection of starving individuals. The bonds of family and friendship are tested against the most primal instinct, the will to survive at any cost. It is here, in this crucible of ice and starvation, that some were driven to unthinkable acts. The decision to consume the flesh of another human being, whether a fallen companion or a member of one's own family, was the final, desperate gamble against death. But the moment human flesh was consumed, the gamble was lost. Survival was achieved, but humanity was forfeited. The act itself is the catalyst, a spiritual point of no return. It is said that the first taste is what invites the ice into the heart. A supernatural coldness floods the veins, extinguishing the warmth of human compassion and replacing it with a chilling, insatiable void. This is not merely a psychological breakdown. In the context of the legend, it is a literal, metaphysical transformation. The spirit of the Wendigo, a being of pure, unending hunger, finds a willing vessel. The curse took hold. The initial change is internal. The individual is overcome by an obsession, a craving that eclipses all other thoughts and feelings. The memory of the taboo act festers, twisting their perception of the world. Food no longer satisfies, warmth no longer comforts. The faces of their companions no longer inspire love or loyalty, but a predatory hunger. They become withdrawn, sullen, their eyes reflecting a new, terrifying coldness. This stage is known in some traditions as Wendigo sickness or Wendigo psychosis, a spiritual affliction where the person is still human, but the monster is growing within them, whispering its insatiable desires. They are tormented by gruesome nightmares and an ever-present craving for more. If the sickness is not treated, the physical transformation begins. The body starts to mirror the decay of the soul. The individual grows unnaturally tall and gaunt, their skin pulled tight over a skeletal frame, sallow and grey like old ice. Their lips become cracked and bloody, stretched thin over teeth that are either filed to sharp points or worn away from chewing on bone. Their eyes, once human, sink deep into their sockets, glowing with a faint, malevolent light, like the last embers of a dying fire. Their voice becomes a rasping hiss, a sound like wind scraping across frozen rock. They are driven from their community, cast out into the wilderness that now mirrors the desolation in their own heart. The newly formed Wendigo is a being of pure paradox, emaciated yet gigantic, starving yet impossibly strong. It is forever hungry, but its hunger can never be sated. The more it eats, the larger it grows, and the more intense its starvation becomes. It is a walking embodiment of insatiable greed, a physical manifestation of the spiritual void created by its first transgression. Its heart is said to be made of solid ice, and its presence alone can invoke unnatural cold and blizzards. It moves with terrifying speed, a phantom gliding through the snow-choked forests, forever hunting, forever empty. The human that once was is gone, replaced by a monstrous echo, a creature cursed to wander the lonely places, a terrifying reminder of what happens when humanity consumes itself. Their body twisted, their hunger grew, and no matter how much they ate, they were never full again. Descriptions of the Wendigo vary, but most agree on one thing. It is tall, unnaturally tall. Its body is gaunt, stretched tight over bone, as if starvation itself took physical form. Some say its heart is made of ice, others claim it smells of rot and death. And once it sets its eyes on you, you will never outrun it. In the late 1800s, settlers and doctors documented something terrifying, a condition known as Wendigo psychosis. Victims believed they were transforming into the creature. They felt overwhelming cravings for human flesh and feared harming those they loved. Some even begged to be restrained or killed. Before the change was complete, the line between myth and memory is often blurred, etched not in stone, but in the fragile frost of a winter's night. For the Algonquian peoples, and later for the European settlers who ventured into the vast, unforgiving wilderness of the Great Lakes and boreal forests, the Wendigo was more than a cautionary tale told around a fire. It was a palpable presence, a chilling possibility that haunted the periphery of their existence. The stories transitioned from the realm of spiritual warning to that of harrowing first-hand accounts, fragmented reports from those who had stared into the abyss and, against all odds, returned. These were not mere fables. They were treated as field reports from the edge of the known world, grim bulletins from the front lines of survival. The earliest and most common signs were auditory, sounds that defied natural explanation. For centuries, hunters and trappers, men and women intimately familiar with the forest's symphony, reported hearing screams echo through the trees. These were not the cries of a known animal, not the howl of a wolf or the shriek of a cougar. They were described as something agonizingly human, yet distorted, stretched thin by an unnatural malevolence. Some accounts claimed the sound was a mimicry, a perfect imitation of a loved one's voice calling for help, a cruel deception designed to lure a person away from the safety of the campfire and into the cold, waiting darkness. The sound would seem to come from all directions at once, a ventriloquist act of the entire forest, disorienting its victim and sowing seeds of panic. Then came the physical evidence, the tangible proof that something was moving through the landscape. Others spoke of massive footprints that ended suddenly. Experienced trackers who could read the story of the forest floor like a written page would follow a set of impossibly large, elongated tracks pressed deep into the snow or mud. The stride was often unnaturally long, suggesting a creature of immense height and speed. Yet the most disturbing feature was their abrupt conclusion. In the middle of an open clearing, with no trees to climb or cliffs to leap from, the tracks would simply stop. It was, as many accounts described it, as if the creature had been plucked from the earth by an unseen hand, or had simply vanished into thin air. This detail was crucial, for it elevated the entity from a mere physical predator to something supernatural, a being unbound by the laws of the physical world. The psychological toll of such an unseen presence was immense. The feeling of being watched is a primal fear, and in these remote territories, it became a constant nerve-shredding reality. Entire villages abandoned ancestral camps after claiming something was stalking them at night. It would begin subtly, a strange scent on the wind, described as that of decaying meat or a damp grave, the snapping of a twig just beyond the firelight, shadows that seemed to move with independent purpose. Night after night, the pressure would mount. The entity would never fully reveal itself, preferring a campaign of terror that frayed the nerves and eroded the collective will of the community. Possessions would be moved, food stores tampered with, and the strange guttural whispers would return on the wind, closer each time. Eventually, the fear would become unbearable, and the people would flee, leaving everything behind in a desperate bid for survival. One of the most famous and well-documented cases is that of Jack Fiddler, an Ojibwe shaman and Wendigo hunter from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Fiddler claimed to have defeated 14 Wendigos in his lifetime. To him and his community, these were not monsters of myth, but people, friends and family members, who had become possessed by the evil spirit, often during times of starvation, and were now a mortal threat. His method was not one of brute force, but of spiritual intervention. He believed that once the transformation was complete, the person was lost, and the Wendigo had to be dispatched to protect the community and release the trapped human soul. In 1907, Fiddler and his brother Joseph were arrested by the Northwest Mounted Police for the murder of a woman they claimed had become a Wendigo. The case represented a profound clash of worlds, a legal system based on British law confronting a spiritual reality that had governed a people for millennia. For the authorities, it was murder. For Fiddler, it was a grim, necessary duty. Western medicine and psychology later offered a different explanation, a culture-bound syndrome known as Wendigo psychosis. This theory proposed that individuals, under the extreme stress of starvation and isolation, would develop a delusional belief that they were transforming into a Wendigo. They would experience an intense craving for human flesh and a paranoid fear of becoming a cannibalistic monster. The symptoms were real, the terror was genuine, but the cause, according to this view, was psychological, not supernatural. It was the mind, fractured by hunger and fear, turning the most terrifying concept in its cultural lexicon into a perceived reality. This explanation, however, fails to account for the external phenomena reported by entire groups: the disembodied screams, the impossible tracks, the palpable sense of a malevolent, non-human entity stalking the woods. It medicalizes the spiritual, offering a tidy diagnosis for a terror that, for many, remains profoundly and stubbornly real. The psychosis might explain the afflicted, but does it explain the affliction itself? Whether a spirit, a psychosis, or something else entirely, the encounters continued into the modern era, adapting to new landscapes. Stories emerged from logging camps, remote mining operations, and even from hikers and campers venturing into the northern wilds. A common thread in these modern accounts is the creature's impossible speed and agility. Witnesses describe a tall, emaciated figure moving through the dense forest with a swiftness that defies belief, its long limbs carrying it over obstacles with an eerie, silent grace. It is seen for a fleeting moment, a pale, gaunt silhouette against the snow, before it disappears back into the shadows, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread and the cold, hard certainty that what was seen was not natural. These are not the ravings of starving trappers from a bygone era. They are the accounts of sober, modern people whose understanding of the world is shattered in a single, terrifying instant. The forest keeps its secrets, and sometimes those secrets look back. Whether monster or manifestation of fear, something was there. According to legend, the Wendigo can't be killed easily. Some tribes believed its icy heart had to be melted with fire. Others said its body must be completely burned to ash. Anything less, and the spirit would return. Even today, stories continue to surface. Campers report strange howls, hikers vanish without a trace, and deep in the northern forests, locals still refuse to whistle at night, fearing something might answer back. The Wendigo isn't just a monster story, it's a reminder of hunger, isolation, and what humans are capable of when pushed too far. And if you ever find yourself alone in the frozen woods, listen carefully, because hunger always finds a way.